Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expert CPG Commerce Podcast. My name is Ryan Flynn, the founder and CEO of Expert CPG Commerce, where we help brands reach more customers on Amazon and beyond. Today's episode is a real treat. We've got Kirsten Sandoval from Mesa DeVita. Mesa DeVita is a sauce brand, I guess, with jarred sauces, but they really can be used for starter sauces and braising and crock pot, and the flavors are absolutely amazing. Someone that uses them, you've got to try them. But to hear Kirsten's whole story of being a self-trained chef, amazing little tidbit there, how she did that, eventually cooking for athletes and NFL football players, and then launched that into her own little brand that has carried different parts all over the country, is quite amazing. And again, all the personal kind of things she's navigated all throughout, and a great story too about doing a national launch right before in Whole Foods and the pandemic hits. Really fascinating stuff there, and we appreciate her sharing that. So awesome stuff today on today's episode. And if you're a brand and you're growing and you're trying to do everything, do it well, we know that Amazon sometimes just falls to the wayside as a brand, right? It's just hard to do everything and do it well. That's where we come in at Expert CPG Commerce. We are Amazon experts, and we can provide the strategy and execution for brands. A lot of brands don't know what they could be doing on Amazon. They don't know all the opportunities they could take advantage of. And so we help you uncover that with a free audit. I know audits, you hear free audit, and what am I really getting? But we're actually going to sit down with you on like a call, an hour plus call, and walk you through everything you could be doing on Amazon in terms of discoverability, buyability, advertising, logistics, all the little programs that Amazon just buries deep within Seller Central they don't tell you about. So we'd love to show you what we can do, not just tell you. So go to expertcpg.com/audit and fill out some information, and we'll get back to you when you qualify, and we'll get that done for you and just give you the results on a call. And we want to show you some value. So again, go to expertcpg.com/audit and take advantage of that. All right, let's have a great episode here with Kirsten. Let's jump right into it. Kirsten, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Ryan. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, excited to have you. You and I have a connection with SKU a few years back as you went through that program. For those who don't know, SKU is the Consumer Products Accelerator out of Austin. Check it out. Buff Grebe, their executive director, was on, I believe, episode 1 of our podcast. They can listen to that. But it was great. We connected there and met through there and watched your brand grow during that time, and obviously since then. So just take a quick second. Tell us about just Mesa DeVita in general. What is it, and where can people find it?
Mesa DeVita is a line of globally inspired cooking sauces. We look to expand beyond that someday. We really want to help bring innovation and inspiration to the consumer products in the center store that are focused on meal prep and just convenience products that are really lacking any innovation, lacking diversity, and lacking the healthy qualities that we're all looking for. We're currently available at several of the Whole Foods in Southern California, Hawaii, Arizona, Chicago in the Midwest, and then New York, New Jersey, and then Raley's in Northern California, Safeway, Albertsons in the Washington State area, and growing out from there. So, it's really exciting. I'm a big believer in the blue ocean theory, going where there's opportunity, but then you're also creating, it's not a whole new category, but we're building on the category, and that hasn't been done yet so much. So lots of challenges there.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get into it for sure. And your stuff is awesome, amazing. I use it personally. I know
Thank you.
time when we first met through SKU, I almost felt embarrassed. I think I emailed you and I said, I used your sauce last night. It's amazing. But I felt bad because I used like canned chicken and like a can of black beans or something. And you were like,
That's
it's okay. That's like the point of it, because like it totally enhanced the flavors of just those, those bases, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But like it's a great product. So definitely check it out. I know, maybe, I don't know if you still, meal prep. Tell us about the history of like meal prep before Mesa DeVita came along. What would people find, or what would people use to like, maybe I was a replacement, but in place of something like Mesa, like your sauces?
Yeah, so I'd say like our direct, something to correlate it to exactly are like Indian and Thai cooking sauces, where you just take whatever protein you have, you add maybe some vegetables, pour the sauce over and simmer it up. That's what they are. And that's what the inspiration behind them was. But I couldn't find the flavors that I have to fit the needs of the people I was cooking for. And ours also are even more versatile. So it's not just a simmer sauce. It's a slow cooker sauce. It's a braising sauce. You can use it instead of chopping a ton of vegetables. You have to go get onions, garlic, ginger, bell peppers, tomatoes, and have a cabinet full of spices just to make one recipe. This eliminates all of that. So you just pour it in, similar to like a sofrito in Italian or Mexican or Latin cooking, but even more in depth where it has even more spices and more vegetables in it.
Yeah, it's awesome. The flavors are amazing. And it's hard to believe it's like that stuff in a jar. Oh my gosh, it tastes so good. All right, so we talked about the sauce a little bit. We'll come back to it. But take us way back when, because you're a trained chef. So tell us about what maybe drew you into the culinary arts and how you started in the field.
Yeah, I'm not a trained chef. I'm a self-trained chef.
Because they'll call it trained. Yeah, self-trained counts.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was definitely a professional chef. So I grew up in definitely a foodie family. Food was everything to us, but a lot of convenience processed foods. And my dad did catering. He had a makeshift meat shop that he built onto our garage. And so, weekends with dad cooking and chucking the smokehouse and, checking the temperature, adding some more wood to the smoker. And so I didn't really do a lot of cooking though until I had my daughter. I was a young mom and I just had to learn how to cook, and that's what I learned to love it, but still tons of processed foods is what I depended on because, you're working, everybody's busy, all that stuff. And I actually ended up cooking more because I had like a health epiphany, a big transformation. I was significantly overweight and obese most of my life. And at that age, so my daughter was 3, I was 25 years old, and I was diagnosed with prediabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and my doctors wanted to put me on the same medication that my dad, who was 40 years older than me and had heart disease, was on. And I was like, wow, I need to do something different or my daughter's likely going to follow in my footsteps. I'm modeling, obviously, this lifestyle for her. And it's not for lack of trying. I mean, I was always on a diet. From the time I was like in middle school, I was on a diet. I remember my first paycheck from my first real job. Like I went to the store and bought lean cuisines and Slim Fast, and I just was always doing that and just never getting healthier, never losing weight. And in fact, going the opposite direction. So I had to figure out what healthy meant. So I started studying the blue zones. They had just come out then. It was like all this new data. And I thought it was fascinating because I just always thought skinny equaled healthy. And I threw that out the window and I said, what do these people do? They're living the longest, they're living well, they're doing something right. And I noticed some of them were eating, lots of fish. Some of them were eating a vegan diet. Others were eating even actually like quite a bit of meat, but lots of vegetables. The one thing I could take away from it was that they were eating real food. They weren't eating a ton of processed food. And so I had to learn how to cook from scratch. And that spurred a total passion. I really loved cooking. I cleared the cabinets out, really had to learn. And I wanted to go into being a chef and working in restaurants, but that was impossible at the time. I worked, a graveyard shift, had a daughter during the day. So I would go to the library and I checked out books from the Culinary Institute of America, Le Cordon Bleu, and I created tracks for myself. So I would do like 3 months of bread baking, 3 months of knife skills, 3 months of, Italian cooking, and really kind of develop my own style through that. I think that was the benefit of not going to culinary school, is that I was able to create my own thing. And what I found was just, I had to make it taste good. I love food and it better taste good. So I figured out ways, like little hacks and little cheats, to get really great flavor. And I lost over 100 pounds within 2 years. All of my lab work became amazing. And I then decided I want to go into this as a career, but chefing wasn't working, or working in a restaurant shop wasn't feasible. So I came across the personal chef industry and I thought, well, that's perfect. I can run the business during my off hours and help other people who need help. So that's where it all started.
Yeah, that's an amazing, I don't know if I knew all the details of that story. That's amazing though. You create those personal tracks for yourself. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I can just imagine, I can just picture you like in the library, picking the
Yep.
books out at home, like on the counter. That's incredible. I mean, obviously it goes back to the inspiration of, modeling for your daughter and not wanting to maybe end up where you mentioned your father, just, health issues and things like that. That's people's own mortality is a big, the mortality of those behind them or, their children is a big motivator for people. But what a great inspiration there and great motivation. And you follow through on it too. It wasn't just like a no pun intended, a flash in the pan, right? It was something you definitely stuck with. And your journey gets even more interesting when you go into the personal chef business. So tell us a little bit about that, about your clients, and then that kind of being the spark for Mesa DeVita.
Yeah. So at that point, I had my son when I formally started the business. Again, I took like a year when I decided what I wanted to do and studied just like how do you run your own business, things like that. And to market it, I started running little nickel want ads back in the day and classified ads. And I thought I could start off and maybe reach new people by working with realtors and maybe just offer to do like open houses for them, cook up some meals or snacks, and then I could market myself to those home buyers, yada, yada. And one of the realtors actually ended up hiring me to be her chef. And it built from there, just word of mouth. I ended up getting a lot of people who were athletes. I started with like bodybuilders, things like that. And so I studied sports nutrition and got some certifications in that. And that just opened up a whole nother world to me. And I started offering services more in depth with that as well. I had actually put the company to rest for a little while. I think you know this, but my kids and I had to start our lives over with the help of the domestic violence shelter. So I had to get quote unquote a real job that had insurance and all that stuff, and ended up going back and starting the business back up several years later. And I ended up working with several of the Seattle Seahawks. It came about just from actually a family connection who worked with a naturopath who was working with one of the players, said, hey, let me connect you. And it just, again, word of mouth, ended up hiring another chef to work with me. And we were hitting 2 clients a day, cooking literally about $6,000 to $10,000 worth of groceries a week.
Wow.
Some of my meals were on the plane to the Super Bowl with some of the players. It was pretty cool.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
It was really great.
Well, what a story. I mean, again, like adversity, right, in your own life, but not letting that be. Obviously, you got to take time and focus on what's right, but then also, getting back into it and starting things up. So, yeah, you develop this clientele. You're cooking for a lot of athletes and preparing their meals. Talk to us about, maybe it happened during this time or before this, but like, what were some initial steps to develop those bases that you use for your sauces?
Yeah, so it came about, my players, I had to get them to learn to love to eat healthy food. A lot of times I would get brought in with a player by their geneticist or doctor or trainer. A lot of times they were just rehabbing, had a surgery, or found out they had some sort of health condition. And so many professional athletes, especially in football, NBA, all of that, they grow up looking extremely fit and healthy, like they're exercising like crazy, and they're younger and they can eat what they want. And, can you imagine like our kids, when they're little, they're running the football practice, ballet, whatever, you're grabbing sometimes a quick meal on the way on the takeout. So I found a lot of my clients, when I get with them, they'd already been through other personal chefs, healthy personal chefs. And they were like, oh, here we go again. Chicken, rice, and broccoli. I'm going to hate it. And so I would take a completely different approach with my players. I would say, what do you want to smell? What are the aromas you want to walk into? What did mom cook? What did grandma cook? What did you grow up eating? And what do you love? And so I would take that inspiration and have to fit their macros and all the nutrient profiles and all those things that I had to get. So I had to start sneaking some supplements in, sneaking nutrition in. A lot of times I had to get them to eat more vegetables. So I was just sneaking like spinach in every blender of everything I could. And that's where, the Indian and Thai cooking sauces that I personally loved cooking with. I was like, okay, so Caribbean food, say for instance, was one of my first clients that I started making these bases for. His family's from the Caribbean, and I need to make a lot of soups, stews, chilies, tacos, things like that, because they're really easy to get. I mean, these guys are eating sometimes 7,000 calories a day during the high season, yeah. And so I had to pack as much flavor and nutrients in as I could. So those meals were pretty standard, but I'm like, how do I give this burrito or taco or, a stew or a pasta dish of some Caribbean flair? So I'd pack the blender with all the fruits, vegetables, spices, and herbs, and then just change up each aromatic profile for the next flavor I was going to make for another client. It's built upon that. And these they would get me in and out of the kitchen in half the time. And I would just start each service by making these blender sauces and then just make everything with them. And they loved them. I didn't give any thought to it. And a couple of years later, I was at a crossroads. So being a chef takes a lot of toll on your body. Your neck down all the time. Your hands are very destroyed by the acids in foods, in washing. Obviously, you're washing so much. And then all the dishes after. We don't have dishwashers when you're a chef, when you're a personal chef or private chef. And so I was like, what can I do? Do I build upon this? Do I create this as a business and then just hire other chefs to work under? But when you're working with professional athletes or any high profile clients, there's such a high level of trust that you have to get with them. And I didn't want to risk that by bringing in other people that I didn't know. And so literally one day I would get home from cooking all day, come home, have to cook for myself and my family. And so you know this, Ryan, both of my children have a rare genetic cancer syndrome. And we have been advised by their geneticists and their doctors to really avoid plastics, foods stored in plastic, and to really watch the quality of oils. So especially oils that are sitting on shelf, that have been cooked a couple of times, that are, vegetable processed trans oils, things like that, and trans fats. And so I was like, gosh, I could use these myself. These, I wish I had this. So that's where that idea sparked, and spent about a year researching that too. Like, how do you start a CPG company?
Yeah.
And I thought I knew everything. I was in the grocery store spending, thousands of dollars a week and multiple trips. I thought I knew everything. Well, I knew nothing.
Yeah. That's the journey, is like just learning as you go. Everybody,
Yeah.
You can hire expertise that costs money, but you got to learn. You got to learn a little bit of everything yourself as you grow it, right? So, what were some of the insights of developing? Like, you had the concept down, right? But then, how do you get that into a marketable product? Like, how do you take that concept? You had the product, obviously you wanted to have it be a healthy sauce, class, but how do you take that to a whole market launch? Like, what are the whole kind of the big steps in there that you followed?
Yeah. So with the food product, either you could make it yourself. And then in order to do that, you have to, go to a commercial kitchen. You have to source all of the ingredients. You have to price it all out. And you really can't scale that terribly much. You can hire more people. You can get a bigger production facility. You can build your own production facility. That's a whole nother beast. You're running a whole nother business at that point. So I went the co-packer route, so co-manufacturing. So you just hire another company. That's all they do, is make products for other people. Mine were sauce products, and they can do all of the sourcing of ingredients. They can buy in quantities that I can't buy in. And then I knew that even though the business was a side hustle for a couple of years and just door to door myself, going to the grocery stores, delivering, I knew at some point I wanted to scale it up, to grow to a national company or international company. And so you have to get ready for that. And you can start with a small co-packer, but they can only last you a little while. So you have to find the next co-packer. And I was lucky in finding a great co-packer that it takes they take small MOQs, minimum order quantities, but they're also ready to ramp up with us. So it's really lucky. That's something that if anybody wants to make a product and go with a co-packer, that is a huge challenge and probably the biggest thing you will do.
Yeah. And how do you stay ahead of take it from, obviously sourcing the product, making the product is the biggest, one of the biggest hurdles, right? But then you're starting to get into market, whether it's been, independent grocery, regional grocery, things like that. You've got these market trends and maybe consumer demands that are like these forces that are hitting you from different sides, and you don't know, is this a fad or is this where the market's going? Like, how do you sort through that noise and maybe get some signal out of it as far as staying true to your product and your mission and your vision of what you want the brand to be, but also maybe adapting to those consumer demands and forces?
That is so true. That was a big thing when I was creating these and really figuring out how I wanted to market them. keto was huge. It was really coming on as a big thing. And I thought, well, do I really go deep dive into this as a keto product and eliminate? Right now, we don't use any sugars. We use dates. Do I cut back on that? Do I just go for a keto product? I really wanted to stay true to, although these aren't like, we're not making like a pad thai sauce. We're not making, they're not like this authentic sauce for this region. I would never say this is a jerk sauce because there's already so many great ones out there. This is a Caribbean inspired cooking sauce or Latin inspired or Moroccan or whatever. And so mine was more on the health benefits, the convenience. Those things never go away. People want basic healthy foods, no fads, just good healthy food and the convenience of it. And then authentic as far as the flavor profiles. Like I work really hard to make sure that somebody who maybe is from the Caribbean and can't find cooking sauces or convenient food products that they can identify with, I want to give them a taste of home just in a different way. And so that was really important to me. But so for me, the market research was, do people want more flavors than just the 3 right now that are available at most grocery stores, Mexican, Asian, and Indian? And so there is a demand for it. And then I had to go back and say, is there enough of a demand? But then I think, the Indian cooking sauces weren't even on grocery store shelves back in the 80s. Now they're everywhere. Everybody relies on them and loves them. So we, kind of a base on the current market, but then where's the future growth of this? And so that's what I focus on a lot.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I have to navigate all that, but I think you've said it right there. For your product in particular, this is my viewpoint as a customer, right? I think something amazing, tastes amazing, but like, is this convenient, right? I mean, we've all been there where you're like, what's for dinner, right? I mean, someone with, multiple kids and, my wife works and it's like, okay, it's 5:00. What are we going to eat for dinner? We didn't plan this out today, right? But when you can go to something like your sauce and add some protein, right? Add some beans, whatever it may be, add some veggies and like it makes this amazing meal. It's really a game changer because you're just not used to that, right? This is not Hamburger Helper. This is something on a whole different level. Not to equate it to that, but I'm just saying it's that easy is what I mean. It's really easy to use your sauce in a different way. How do you educate the customer though about you only have so much space on your product when it's on the shelf, right? Or whether it's on your website or whether it's on Amazon. How do you educate the customer on those healthy benefits, right? And do it so when they're looking at 2 products side by side, whether virtually or in the store, they can really hone in on your product and maybe that's the one they purchase.
Yeah, that is such a good point. That is something I'm constantly learning. I thought I knew it all. You put it all, like you said, like you only have so much space and my bottle is thin. It doesn't have a lot of space. There's a lot of information to get out there. So that was really great for me to go through the SKU program and get your input as a mentor and some of the other mentors. Like, here, yes, you have all of this. You could say 1,000 things about this product. What are the most important things that you have to do to get across? And I started off marketing the business just online. So you have a website, you can videos, you can really educate the consumer really well. When you're on shelf, it's a totally different ballgame. They don't know anything about your product. They just need to, I think they said they have 10 seconds to get their attention or less than 10 seconds. They have to understand what it is. So that is something, we have new labels coming out soon because all of this, I'm just learning as I go. I thought I had it. Nope. You learn and you pivot a little bit and continually increase that. But definitely, I would say I started this business because I really wanted to cook for more people than just the one client I could cook for. I really want to help so many people through these meals and these meal prep convenience products. But now I hardly cook and I'm just a marketing company. I'm basically a marketing logistics company.
That's a great point. Leads me to my next question. You took the kind of great tee up for this. How do you stay true to that authenticity of your brand, right? You eventually, I heard this on a recent podcast. You got to figure out what business you're in, right? So you mentioned, you're more in the marketing business and maybe logistics. Yes, you are in the sauce business, right? But you've got to tell that story and you've got to get it out there to people, right? I tell people here at Expert CPG, we're an Amazon agency, but we're not in the Amazon business. We're in the client service business because we've got to, number one, make sure we understand our clients, what their needs are, what makes them tick, what their goals are. And then we've got to deliver, exceed those expectations and meet them kind of where they are. Yes, we got to know everything about Amazon and do it well. But just like you've got to have amazing sauces and great products, but you've got to market. So how do you stay true to that authenticity of your brand and your values as a company?
That's a good question, because there are so many ways, especially with the food product, that you can market it. And, social media is huge, but it is so easy to get lost there. There's a million videos being produced every minute. So, like you said, you really have to find out who your consumer is, who is going to buy your product, what do they need, what are their pain points, how can we get through to them and reach them. So that's constantly that's what I'm doing at all times, figuring out who they are, what they need, where they're consuming information, how we can get through to them on a small budget. We're a small start. I'm still a solopreneur. I have lots of contractors that work for us now. Thankfully, when I started with SKU, I was literally by myself. I had not one person involved in the company. So I stay really hands-on with that. That's, I guess, the great thing about being a small company is you do have your fingerprint on everything. So every person I hire to do either graphics or social media or something, we're working on that together, giving them who our customer is, who we are as a company, who we want to remain and keep that authentic. And right now, one of the things that's so huge are the TikTok trends, and there's all these videos you can do, and you're supposed to jump on this trend bandwagon. But I'm like, that's just not authentic to me. I'm not this wild and crazy character. And so it's really staying heads down, I think, focusing and staying true to who you are. But you do also have to look up sometimes and say, what should I be paying attention to? How can I bring that in and maybe be trendy, but not fake and not a flash in the pan either?
Yeah, it's that whole thing we talked about earlier with the signal and the noise, right? It's like you've got to filter what's right for my brand and what's right for me and who am I? And I do want to portray that and is that authentically me? And when you bring on either contractors, employees, whoever it may be, it's trying to just download all that to them so they can get it. And that can be one of the scariest things to do. I know I speak from my experience as an entrepreneur. Oh man, I hope they get it. They hope they're going to be able to do this and handle it. And you got to train them well, lead by example, but then you got to put some trust in them as well. Hopefully you made the right decision.
You're right. That's the hard part.
It is. You've had some various media appearances, publicity. How's that kind of played in your favor, either locally or regionally or more nationally? How have things like that kind of played into your story and helping the brand grow?
Yeah, a lot of our big media. So I was on Guys Grocery Games back in the day, and I actually won it. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I was on the cover of Women's Day magazine. Had a lot of great press when I was the chef to the athletes, because that's cool. People want to hear about that. Now press, you have to pay for it a lot. So definitely just getting the story out there. A lot of customers, they'll find us because they bought us on shelf. They don't know anything about our product, the backstory or who I am or anything, because it's not on the bottle. There's no way I could fit that on the bottle. And so when they like this product and they start digging in, they sign up for our newsletter. Maybe they start following me on social media, and they're like, oh, wow, there's all this behind there. So, it's just keeping it out there, just keeping telling the story. I always say, I think so many things I went through. I gave my kidney to my brother. Lots of things. There's lots of facets to my story and the backstory. Yeah. And I just feel like everything I've gone through has been so I can help somebody else. And even when I started this company, I really went it alone because I'm kind of stubborn and I feel like I can do everything. I don't like asking for help. Yep. And I've had to really learn to ask for so much help and lean on other people and get advice and be open to that and handing it off to somebody else sometimes. And so I think that's where that's coming in. I think if I can help somebody who knows, maybe they're going through some really hard domestic violence stuff in their life, or kidney donation type stuff, or transplant, or they are wanting to start a business and they don't. I made a lot of mistakes early on, but I've learned from them all. And so maybe start to help somebody else.
Exactly. You can start giving back to not just in your product, but also your experience. And you have a wealth of, just from this conversation too, getting this out there and having people watch it and listen to it. Right. And they can, we're all a little stubborn as well, by the way. We want to hold on to everything and control it, but then we just kind of learn to kind of let go. And again, it goes back to the whole finding the right people, trusting them and having them run with the brand. So that's
Definitely.
huge. Okay. So you shared a a lot of your story as a professional chef, as an entrepreneur. Like, what are some key lessons from those journeys? Like, taking it all in together. You can take separately or together, right? Those two. But
Yeah.
like, what are some key lessons you've learned you want to share with the audience?
I think always definitely stay true to your gut, to what your beliefs are, because you will get a lot of advice. You'll get a lot of contractors or whoever. You'll start kind of veering off for like, should I do this? Or, oh yeah, maybe I should be doing this instead. So just really staying true to your gut and listening to your gut. That's a big one. I mean, I always listen to my gut. If something feels off, there's a reason. I think that, so listening to that. And then, gosh, I think that asking for help, that's been a big one. It's really helped with me, just getting smarter people in the room and learning from them, and just growing from that. And gosh, one big piece of advice I would say, don't, launch nationally with Whole Foods right before a pandemic like I did. I can give a real true life experience.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, nobody had global pandemic on the bingo cards, so nobody could have seen that one. I mean, that's, and if you don't mind, tell us about that. Tell us about, to get that number one, that call that's going to happen. That's so exciting, right? Because if you're a customer, definitely is in Whole Foods, right? You're a ideal customer. But do you mind walking us through that? Just that whole story and like a little bit, and just like I can't imagine the agony also you probably had to face with some of that.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. So let's see, I started this company in 2017, formerly 2016, all the ideas, the research and all of that. I had the first project in hand early 2017, and it was a side hustle. I still was working full-time as a chef. My kids and I would do farmers markets in the evening. I would go door to door and deliver product and sell online. And I had a little Instagram and all the good stuff like you're supposed to do when you're a company. And one day I got a call in early 2019, and it was the Whole Foods buyer, the global buyer, and said that they would like to take our products. And I thought, okay, great. Oh my gosh, out of the blue, I never applied for anything. She said that all the consumer data is showing customers are wanting more diverse flavors, more inspiration. And I heard that from another supplier that when they had in-person meetings back then, that actually she had bought my product and she showed them like, we need something like this. And again, nobody was thinking, there's so many copycat products out there. They're just doing the same thing over and over again. And so she was like, I want to take you national. And I had no idea what that meant or what it entailed. And she gave me, we had some calls, kind of went over it. I called in some other people that she referred me to that had, national product launches in Whole Foods, and had to come up with like, how much do I even charge? How much do I charge a distributor? I wasn't working with the distributor. And I thought, this is awesome, because the first invoice I get paid, it will pay for that product development, or the product run. We'll be off to the races. We'll be getting more orders. So I had no investment at that time. I mean, I had friends and family, just a little bit to start the company, a little bit off, get our first runs of production, and it probably all would have worked out. But right after, so we launched Q4 of 2019. In February I had just donated my kidney that year. I actually moved to California from Washington on the day our products launched into Whole Foods. I ended up, my wound opened from the inside. It ripped open, lovely. And that was not fun. So I had to have a second surgery. That was in February 2020. I was coming out of the hospital and I'm like, I can keep working. I just got to keep working on that. We were getting huge purchase orders. I mean, this is a national launch. And production was keeping up. Everything was good on that front. And I started seeing on the news, there's this strange flu or something going on. I had to go back in the hospital about a week later. By then, COVID was full blown. Basically, I was in a room like everything was, taped off. And by about March right then, I think that's when all of the lockdowns were happening. So grocery stores were wiped out, like everybody panic bought everything. So every product of ours, everybody else's, was bought off the shelf. So we had product in the distribution centers stacking up, and we didn't get back on shelf for about 8 to 9 months. And by then, a national rollout was just not executed well. Most of the stores, they're just focusing on, just keeping their head above water. And that was right at the same month that, not a lot of people know this, but when you launch with a larger retailer, a lot of retailers, even if they're not large, you have to give them a free fill. So that's free product, a free case of every SKU that you have for every store that they have. So for us, that was like $100,000 investment, which again, we thought, okay, it'll come off the top once we keep getting those invoices of POs.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to work itself out. We're going to recoup that in no time. Oh, man.
Yeah, but not when you get wiped off shelf. So it was terrifying. Just how do we recover from this? Orders did start picking back up. But at that point, I was like, the format at that time was a very small, short jar. I started seeing that some of the shelves they put us on at the store were these tiny little shelves at the very top. Nobody could even see our product. So right about that time, thankfully, SKU selected me to be part of their program. You were one of my mentors on my team. And I just got some feedback from great CPG experts. And here's, you go into a taller bottle, reformulate a little bit. My products were extremely concentrated before. They're saying people don't want that. They want one and done. Like you said, the hamburger helper effect. We talked a lot about hamburger helper during that.
I remember that. As I said that earlier, I was like, I remember we talked a lot about hamburger helper. Like just
hamburger helper, yeah. So, yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. But again, you pivot, you keep on going. And I think in this business, you have to have just such a thick skin and resiliency because you will be knocked down no matter what. It might be a bad production run. You might get a recall or who knows, funding is really difficult right now. Like I finished up the SKU program and they're like, all right, everybody, we want you to go off and raise money. And it's hard. So now yes, we're growing, but we are scaling back. We're really growing a lot slower than what we could if we had $1 million investment or even a $500,000 investment. We are working with what we have and growing slowly and really working on profitability because, again, that's changed. Back when I did this program or just before, investors didn't care if you were profitable, if you had a business plan that eventually would be or they could sell. And it was like pouring everything into marketing. And so now you just have to pivot and start up, just do what works now and do it again, stay true to that. So,
yeah. I mean, you got to be, it's a big risk to sit there and be like, okay, yeah, we'll make it work. We'll just grow to a certain size that a big CPG company will buy us, which was a lot of the play that a lot of brands used and maybe still try to use today. But you need big pockets, deep pockets for that. And It's a big bet you're placing. And things are changing with the investment world, with interest rates and everything else. And I always talk to brands, like just understanding the unit economics, not only like we use a lot through Amazon, understanding like what's your Amazon profitability on one unit, taking into account everything it takes to sell that unit, using ads, not using ads, building that into your contribution margin, but also understanding that from every channel, your D2C and distributors and anything else. So just really understanding what are we getting out of each unit and that channel is super important.
Yeah. That's a really great tip. I think that's something, to know your numbers back and forth and I don't even start if you don't have, like Amazon's a big one. Like it doesn't make sense for us to have one jar on there or one bottle on there. I have to though, because Whole Foods links up to it and people buy through there for their pickup orders. So, trying to discourage it, you have to bump my price up a little bit, but then I offer a 2-pack and a 5-pack so that it does make more sense. And then you do start getting into that where you have to have that padding for the marketing and all of that. Yeah.
Yep. The biggest thing we see with, brands like yourselves, food and beverage brands, CPG brands is a couple things when it comes, multi-packs obviously are huge, right? You've got single units typically just did not work. And like you said, you just got to work with, if a single unit, you don't have to sell against that necessarily, that ASIN, right? You can have that on there, even potentially your own variant set. But the other thing is like making sure the unit economics work no matter what pack size you pick. But also the second thing is understanding like the different fulfillment costs as you increase that pack size. Are you going over a size threshold, right? Whether it's the length and the width of the item or the box that's packaged in or a weight potentially, right? Or the other thing too is that with grocery type items, obviously, and it's also in some other categories, but being under a certain price point, we get a discounted referral fee. So like $15, under $15 in the grocery category, you're going to pay 8% off the top instead of 15%. So we see a lot of brands, they'll be at $16.99. It's you could actually charge the customer less and make just as much or about the same amount of money at $14.99 because Amazon's going to charge you less. It's hard to know all those things, right? It's hard to know those little things about each and every channel, but every channel has things like that as well. So talk to us about What's next for Mesa DeVita? Like, what are the future plans? Anything big on the horizon, upcoming projects or products you can tell us about?
Yeah, I would love to develop new products right now. Again, we're focusing on the 5 core flavors that we have right now and just getting those into more distribution. We are more stores, more retailers, getting them into people's hands, getting them buying them every week, realizing they can really depend on these. And as soon as that happens and we really start rolling and gain some ground, we're not national anymore. We have a national presence, but we're not national with Whole Foods anymore. Thankfully, it's just not a fit for the company of my size. And so we dialed back to just a few regions, and then we're focusing really on going deep in those regions and the retailers that we're with to get those velocities up, get that awareness up, and growing out from there. But definitely the company, the big vision for the company, I always say, I see it. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I see it. It'll happen. I mean, I have an idea, but things always surprise you. But there's so many other products in the grocery store, center store that need innovation. They're, like you said, hamburger helper is one of them. I mean, there's how cool would it be to have one in different flavors or soups? That's another category. Frozen meals that could use some innovation, and international expansion is a really big goal with this company. Food service, people in other countries are very used to cooking with starter sauces. They're completely normal to them, especially in Europe. So, going after that market at some point. So lots of big dreams, lots of big hopes. I know I won't be working on it on my own at that point. And so just taking baby steps right now and getting our profitability there, and then start really ramping up with some new flavors. I have lots in my back pocket. I can't wait to launch.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
We can't wait to try them. And I will say, I'm smiling big there because I'm the same. I'm blessed and cursed with the same ability of seeing a big vision and just knowing what it looks like when it's all done and when it's there. And it's the struggle for us, visionaries like you and I, is just getting there. It's like finding the people, right resources to get on the bus with you and help execute to that vision and get there. We actually internally for us just changed in the last year or so. We changed our mission, which we have on our website, but more internal of anything. But it's helping brands fulfill their ultimate vision, right? The ultimate vision they have for their brand, because Amazon's a part of that, right? E-commerce is definitely a part of that. But you know what it looks like, right? You know what your Amazon page would look like when it's all built out and 4.7 stars and 10,000 reviews, and you just can see it, right? And you can see what it looks like when it's on the shelf. You can see what it looks like when it's in people's pantries. And so, our thing is help getting brands there, at least on the Amazon and e-commerce side of things.
I love that.
Totally resonate with that there. So, and as we wrap up here, Kirsten, what is one final piece of advice maybe you'd give to our listeners who are looking maybe to improve their health through better nutrition and cooking? Obviously, to buy the Mesa DeVita sauces, right? Buy those wherever you can find them, as you mentioned, the place at the top. But what are some ways? What's some advice you'd give there?
To cook at home more. It is really the catalyst to a healthier life. When you eat out, it's really hard to control what ingredients are in there. You don't always know. And even ones that are labeled healthy, in the end, that company is trying to make a profit too. So unless you have like endless money and you can buy the highest quality out there, and it's really hard to. So yeah, cooking at home is literally such a catalyst to a healthier lifestyle. It's one of the key indicators of people who do live longer. They eat at home more often. So learning some great recipes that you can totally depend on, that if you're up against it, or you're running home late from work, the kids have practice, whatever, and you just need to get a meal on the table, you have some great ideas in the ingredients in your pantry or freezer or whatever. So that's definitely my number one. And then one of the things I always just am urging people is to look at oils. So cooking with oil is great. Olive oil, avocado oil, there's some beautiful oils out there, but oils in our products, they're usually, if they're in a sauce or product that's in the freezer or whatever, it's been cooked before. So it's been cooked, go into the product, then you're reheating it again. And that really, I've had so many geneticists and doctors tell us that they think it's behind so many diseases. And it's just, and then if it's sitting in plastic, even worse, because the microplastics are leaching into that. That's a big one for me, just being cognizant of that.
Yeah, those are great pieces of advice. And yeah, the great thing about cooking at home and definitely trying recipes, and you have children or family members, and they get to experience like, oh, this tastes a little different than our standard, whatever it may be, right? Potatoes and steak or whatever we're having. It's kind of broadening their horizons as well. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. All right, how can people connect with you? And again, can you tell us where they can buy and find Mesa DeVita sauces?
Yeah, so mesadevita.com so MESADEVIDA. It means table of life in Spanish. So that has all of our store locators on there. You can buy online from there. And I can give you a code too if you want to add it at the end. If anybody reads it, they get a discount if they're listening in. And I'm on LinkedIn. So I think it's under Kirsten Sandoval, Helle Sandoval. And we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff with Mesa DeVita. Share lots of recipes. And you see me cooking a lot.
You guys have great stuff on social. So yeah, definitely follow for some awesome content. So Kirsten, thanks so much. This has been a great conversation. I feel like I could keep talking to you about a million more things, but I really appreciate you coming on and number one, sharing your story and all the amazing story that you have, and then just sharing more about your brand and your values and your challenges and your triumphs of building it.
Thank you. I just really quick, one last thing. One thing I really attribute to you as my mentor. One of the things I had not focused on, I was focused on my products, on getting the company built out. I hadn't really focused on myself as a CEO and how that looks and how it will look to hire people and bring people in and all of that. So you really helped me a lot with that to really develop my company, like what it means to me and how I will be a leader within that company, even meetings. I remember you were really great about helping me with the meetings and learning how to lead a meeting because I had never done that before. So that's also a big thing too. I have a great idea, great product, but you also have to learn to be a CEO or a leader of the company, or you better hire somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Thank you. Very kind words. And it was great working with you. So thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much to Kirsten Sandoval from Mesa DeVita for coming on the show today. Amazing story. Just amazing woman who's done a lot in her life. And it's continuing just to grind out there and continue to grow this brand. And as she put it, focus on profitability and then just growing it from there. And I hope she does awesome because her sauces are amazing. So make sure you pick them up wherever you can find them. So, and hopefully you get a lot of value out of this episode, right? Just hearing the stories of the founders and hearing, their, how they did things or how they view things, right? And sometimes just hearing those little things can spark thought or inspiration for you, right? That's what podcasts do for me, just learning and watching things, listening to things. It really helps me and my business as well. Hopefully it's doing the same for you. And if it is, we'd love for you just to rate, review us, subscribe, like, whatever platform you're on, do all the things you can do to make this thing grow, right? Because that's how we can reach more people. That's how we can, affect more change and just provide more value to everyone. So please like, rate, review us, all that fun stuff on these platforms, and share this with a friend. Send this to a friend or a colleague, someone you know in the industry that would get value from this as well. And that's it for today's episode. We will see you on the next episode of the Expert CPG Commerce Podcast.